Hello and welcome. Now, when you think of a Battle of Hastings, what comes to mind? Do you think chivalry, knights on horseback, riding large destriers into battle? Do you think archers flinging arrows for hours on end? Well, you wouldn't be quite right, but you wouldn't be far off either. Now, today we're going to look at the Battle of Hastings and how not everything was quite as we were taught. As fans of history, we all understand that nothing happens in isolation. So to understand the events of the 14th of October 1066, we have to look back to the year 911. The Carolingian ruler Charles the Simple allowed a group of Vikings to settle in Normandy under their leader Rollo. The settlement proved successful and they quickly adapted to the indigenous culture, renouncing paganism, converting to Christianity and intermarrying with the local population. Over time, the frontiers of the duchy expanded westward, and in 1002, King Ethelred II married Emma, the sister of Richard II, Duke of Normandy. Their son, Edward the Confessor, spent many years in exile in Normandy and succeeded the English throne in 1042. This led to the establishment of a powerful Norman interest in English politics, as Edward drew heavily on his former hosts for support, bringing in Norman courtesans, soldiers and clerics, appointing them in powerful positions, particularly in the church. Edward the Confessor was childless and embroiled in conflict with the formidable Godwin, Earl of Wessex, and his sons, and he may also have encouraged Duke William of Normandy's ambitions for the throne of England. King Edward's death on the 5th of January 1066 left no clear heir, and several contenders laid claim to the throne of England. Edward's immediate successor was the Earl of Wessex, Harold Godwinson, the richest and most powerful of the English aristocrats, and son of Godwin, Edward's earlier opponent. Harold was elected by the Witan and crowned by the Archbishop of York, although Norman propaganda claimed that the ceremony was performed by Stigand, the uncanonically elected Archbishop of Canterbury. Harold was at once challenged by two powerful neighbouring rulers. Duke William claimed that he had been promised the throne by King Edward, and that Harold had sworn an agreement to this effect. Harald Hardrada of Norway also contested succession. He claimed the throne was based on an agreement between his predecessor Magnus the Good and the King of England Harthcnut, whereby if either died without an heir, the other would inherit both England and Norway. William and Harald Hardrada immediately set about assembling troops and ships for separate invasions. The English army was organised along regional lines. The fyrd, or local levy, serving under a local magnate, whether an earl, bishop or sheriff. The fyrd was comprised mainly of men who owned their own land and were equipped by the local community to fulfill the king's demand for military forces. For every 5 hides, or unit of land nominally capable of supporting one household, one man was to serve. It appears that the 100 was the main organising unit for the fyrd, and as a whole England could furnish around about 14,000 men. The fyrd usually only served for around 2 months, except in emergencies. It was rare for the whole national force to be called out. Between 1046 and 1065 it was only done 3 times, once in 1051, 1052 and in 1065. The king also had a group of personal armsmen known as housecarls, who formed the backbone of royal forces. Some earls also had their own housecarls, or thanes, the local landowning elites. Either these fought with the royal housecarls, or attached themselves to the forces of an earl or other magnate. The fyrd and other housecarls both fought on foot, with the major differences being in the housecarls' superior armour and arms. The English army did not have many, if any, archers. Harold spent mid-1066 on the south coast with a large army and fleet waiting for William to invade. The bulk of his forces were militia, or the Fjord as we previously said, who needed to harvest their crops. So on the 8th of September, Harold dismissed the militia and the fleet. Learning of the Norwegian invasion in the north, he rushed, gathering forces as he went, and he took the Norwegians by surprise, defeating them at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. And if you'd like to know more about the Battle of Stamford Bridge, please see my video I did there earlier. On the 25th of September, Harald, Hardrada and Tostig were killed, and the Norwegians suffered a great loss. So bad was the loss that only 24 of the original 300 ships were required to carry away the survivors. The English victory came at a great cost as well, as Harold's army was left battered and weakened. William's fleet set sail for England in August 1066, but adverse winds kept them from the port for weeks. Finally, on September 27th, the winds shifted in William's favour, and his fleet of approximately 700 ships crossed the English Channel. Upon landing, William faced the daunting task of establishing a foothold in hostile territory. He quickly fortified his position and began raiding the surrounding countryside to secure provisions and intimidate the local population. Meanwhile, Harold, having just defeated Hardrada at Stamford Bridge, received the news of the invasion and immediately began marching south with his exhausted and depleted army. The stage was now set for the decisive confrontation between Harold's Anglo-Saxon forces and William's Norman invaders. On October 14th, 1066, the two armies met at the Battle of Hastings near the town of Battle in present-day East Sussex. The battle began in early morning and lasted throughout the day. Harold's army, consisting primarily of infantry, formed a shield wall on the high ground, while William's forces, including cavalry and archers, deployed below. William's strategy relied heavily on his cavalry's ability to break through Harold's shield wall and exploit weaknesses. The Normans launched several attacks throughout the day, but Harold's troops held their ground stubbornly. However, the tide of battle decisively changed in William's favour when false rumours of his death spread among English ranks. This caused them to break formation and pursue retreating Normans. Seizing the opportunity, William's cavalry launched a devastating counterattack, causing chaos and confusion in the English ranks. So now, you're all sitting there going, what are you talking about? This is all stuff we already know. We've all been told this 100 times over. Now, everything I've spoken about is all factual. I have researched this and I've used credible sources, constantly, journal articles, peer-reviewed. This next part, following the end of the battle, I'm taking from legends and rumours at the time. And just to posit a really interesting question. Did Harold die? Rumours surrounding Harold's survival after the Battle of Hastings have persisted for centuries, adding an element of mystery to the already dramatic events of 1066. One popular legend suggests that Harold managed to escape the battlefield alive with the help of his wife, Edith Swanneck, or, as she was also known, Edith the Fair. According to this tale, after the battle, Edith searched the field for Harold among the bodies. Upon finding a body she believed to be her husband's, she arranged for its burial. However, Harold allegedly survived his injuries and was spirited away by Edith to safety, where he lived out the rest of his days in obscurity. While the story is intriguing, it does lack a lot of historical evidence to support it. The primary source for documenting the events of the Battle of Hastings, such as the Bayeux Tapestry and contemporary chronicles, make no mention of Harold surviving. Instead, they depict Harold being struck down by an arrow, a fatal blow that ultimately led to his death. The legend of Harold surviving and escaping may have originated from the desires to romanticize mythology, the fate of a fallen English king. Regardless of its historical accuracy, the story of Harold's supposed survival continues to captivate the imagination of those fascinated by the events of 1066, with me included. I got interested in history through this story, although it's not supported by contemporary sources, and all we have is rumours from a time that romanticise this period in history I still think it is an extremely fascinating story and one we should keep in mind. And maybe, just maybe, one that could get more people interested in history. Now, thank you all for watching, and if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe to find out more. Thank you all, take care.